This episode is going to be a little bit different in a really awesome, amazing way. Today, I am interviewing Lisa Mortensen, who, if you don't know who Lisa is, first of all, that means you're not on our email list. So get on our email list. But second, Lisa is in Ohio and she is becoming a licensee in our curriculum. And she is working with me to start her own version of our program in her hometown in Ohio. So Lisa and I have been working together for maybe 6 weeks now, working on getting her program up and running to start in the summer in her community for not only students in her community, but also her own kids. So, on this episode, Lisa and I are going to jump into who she is, what her background is, what her family story is, how she came to be connected with me, and all the amazing places that Lisa is going from here. So stick around for this awesome interview with Lisa. All right, Lisa, I'm so excited to be doing this interview with you. I think, we had a little bit of time before we started working together where we were emailing back and forth and talking a little bit and met on Zoom. And then now we've had, I think, about 6 weeks where we've been meeting together every week and just really getting things in place for your business to jump starting this summer. I would really love for you to share the background of why this is even the place for you to begin with. So tell us whatever you want to share about your personal history, your family history, and just kind of, I am not a parent. So I kind of have that separation a little bit because I don't have that story, but you have that story so powerfully. So I would love to hear all of that from you.
Okay. So I guess to start with, I am a mom of 4 kids. I have a set of twins who are 22 now. So they're boys, and my next one is Caleb, and he is 17. And then I have a daughter that is 15. And over time, raising my kids, I found out, well, first I was suspicious that the twins had autism, but had a hard time getting them diagnosed. And then when Caleb came into the picture, it became very obvious that he had autism. And because he was diagnosed, I was then able to get the twins diagnosed. And so all 3 of them are officially diagnosed as autistic. All 3 of them have anxiety issues and ADHD in one form or another. One is hyperactive, the other 2 are not. And then the youngest is not officially diagnosed as autistic. It's harder with girls. And my youngest is my daughter. And she and I both suspect that she's on the spectrum, but we have not had that officially confirmed. She is diagnosed with social anxiety, with ADHD, social anxiety and ADHD. And so all of my kids are on the spectrum somewhere, because as you know, ADHD is spectrum as well. In the process of this journey, my husband and I also figured out that he's autistic, which wasn't a hard thing to figure out. It was pretty, what we were talking about. He also hasn't been officially diagnosed, but there's no question. And then very recently, I found out officially that I have ADHD. So everybody in our family is on the spectrum somewhere. We're all neurodivergent. So that's the family background there. And
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure, absolutely.
That's so incredible. You mentioned that it was difficult to get your oldest kids diagnosed. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I do, well, our audience is very heavily autistic and ADHD kids, but we are open to anybody who's struggling with social challenges, friendships, that kind of thing. So I know that there's people in our audience who have kids who are not diagnosed. So I just wondered if you'd be willing to share, what did you notice about your kiddos that led you to think there were some neurodiversities, and then what was the journey like to try to get those discovered?
So that's going back quite a ways. I haven't thought about that in a long time, but so there's a lot of family element in our situation. I don't know if autism is always a genetic thing, but on my husband's side, he has 3 brothers, and all of his brothers are somewhere on the spectrum. Again, not necessarily officially diagnosed, but once you know, you know. And all of the grandchildren are somewhere on the spectrum.
Wow.
When my husband and I got married and started having kids, my husband's one brother was also married and had 2 children. And so my sister-in-law was already on the journey of trying to figure things out. And so she had done some research and knew some things. And so when I started noticing things with my sons, the first thing I turned to was her. And as I started learning about autism, things were clicking. So with my boys, my 2 twins, they were really, really smart. They had a great ability to understand things as far as academics go. So like we were in preschool at the time, but they had trouble with keeping up with people in the classroom, just socially staying on task in the classroom. They had a lot of sensory issues, which was one of the first things that I noticed. Both of those 2 were very fearful of physical things. I don't know that McDonald's playlands are such a thing anymore, but back in that time period, they were really popular, and we would always go there, all of our mom group, and my kids wouldn't go up in it. They would go on the first level, and they were afraid to climb any higher. And they were that way well into like 1st and 2nd grade. They just were afraid. And I'm trying to think what else. They were sensitive in different areas, sound, food aversions, things like that. So I reached out to our pediatrician first, and she referred us to a psychologist, pediatric psychologist, who, my first experience was awful. She spent 1 hour with one of the twins and then sat me down and said that there was nothing wrong with my child. He was not autistic. He had nothing going on. It was me, and that I just needed to get off the internet and spend more time with my children, and that would solve anything I was seeing.
Oh
and
my gosh.
I was mortified. I was so upset. And I went back to my pediatrician and told her what this woman had said, and she laughed. And she thought it was funny that that's just how this woman is. And I was livid.
Yeah.
That pediatrician moved away. In the meantime, I went to several other people, and we received several diagnoses, ADHD, we got sensory processing disorder, all the things. And then that pediatrician eventually moved away, went out of practice. And the new one that came in happened to be a parent of a child on the spectrum. And the first time he met one of the twins, after about 15 minutes with us, he said, "Does he have trouble making friends?" And I was overjoyed. I said, "I know what you're asking that for, and I'm so happy." And so he referred us to the psychiatrist that we are still with. He manages all of my kids' medications, and he diagnosed all 3 boys. So.
Okay. Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it was a frustrating journey with the first 2.
Yeah.
Nobody believed me. Like there was something wrong with me, that I was trying to pin a label on my kids or something. And I was just trying to get them help.
Right. Absolutely.
I ended up pulling them out of public school, the twins, when they were just as they finished 2nd grade, because I couldn't get them the help that they needed. And so I just brought them home, and I homeschooled them until 6th grade, through 6th grade, which was the time that we got the diagnosis for them and my son. And then we went to a charter school for kids on the spectrum.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. It's a charter school for kids on the spectrum.
That one was, yeah.
Okay.
We were there until the twins graduated from there, and then that school system had some trouble. And so now my other son goes to a private school for kids on the spectrum. My daughter's in public school.
Okay. So you've kind of been all over the school spectrum, homeschool, charter school, public school, private school.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, unfortunately, I think that's somewhat common, right? In parents search for whatever they feel like is going to be the best in the best interest of their kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with school it's difficult because school is brand new every year. Even if your kids are in the same school, the teachers are different. The grade is different. Once they get to secondary, the courses are different. So I think school is so difficult because it can be a completely new experience from one year to the next, even if your child is still in the same school.
Absolutely. And that's even more true for our kids right now who've lived through COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Okay. So you have your twins who are now adults living the adult life. And then
Crazy.
you have, yeah. And then you have a teenage son and a teenage daughter. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And along the way, you and your husband getting your own official and unofficial diagnoses as well. So one question that I have is, you and I have bonded over that too, that we both have been diagnosed with ADHD at our age. Mine was a little under 2 years ago. So realizing at our mature adult age that this is something we've had our whole lives. How do you feel like either the actual diagnoses or just the suspected diagnoses, how do you feel like having that information has benefited both you for yourself personally, but also your ability to parent your kids and be a spouse to your husband? How do you feel like those relationships and dynamics have benefited from just more awareness?
I would say I honestly feel getting that diagnosis was one of the best things that's happened to me because it has just been life-changing for me in how I see myself. I was just thinking today about what it's like being a parent with ADHD because I'm a really harsh self-critic, and I think a lot of us are, but as a person with ADHD, impulse control is not great. And we often joke about my inability to think before I act as a parent and some of the things that I have taught my kids without thinking because I just want to crack an inappropriate joke or whatever. And, my husband is the good example and I am the bad example. And I have felt guilty about that for a really long time. And also just guilty about not being able to keep up with all my ideas of how to keep my kids on schedule or chore charts or what have you. I can't do it. I've never been able to do it. And I've always felt like that was a reflection on my quality as a person. And having this diagnosis helps me to understand, one, there's a reason why I am the way I am. Two, it helps me to find workarounds because there are so many people out there who have great ideas that help, people with ADHD to be able to manage our lives better. But also, sorry, I got a little bit lost, but to just have that validation that I have done pretty well despite the challenges that I've had. And I think it helps my family because, like I said, I'm learning ways to work around. I'm not great at it, but I found bullet journaling is a really good way to stay on task, and breaking things down into small tasks helps keep on top of things. And so like our kitchen was always a disaster before, and I found a really good way for us all to stay on top of the dishes because none of us like to go in and wash a whole kitchen full of dishes. But if we keep on top of it and everybody puts their stuff in the dishwasher, and this is probably something that most people know, but I have never thought about it until I started thinking about how to break things into smaller tasks. But our kitchen has been so much cleaner because we just do a little bit at a time.
You know what I would imagine, Lisa? I think, it is difficult for neurotypical brains to understand neurodivergent brains and vice versa, right? So part of the challenge is parents and kids being able to understand each other, and understanding why certain things are a struggle or are not a struggle, or just being able to see things from someone else's perspective when you don't have that dynamic in your brain. And like I said, it goes both ways, right? So for some parents, it's understanding why certain things like bathing are such a challenge for their kiddo. But for the kiddos, understanding why some things are so important to their parents that to them just seems pointless and meaningless. So I think it's one of the beautiful things is being able to understand not only what you need, but also what your kids need, because you can see it through a similar lens. So you can understand that the kitchen isn't a mess because there's 6 people in your house who don't care about anything. And it's not an intentional act on the part of anybody in your family. It's that nobody in your family has the executive functioning skills, right, to do the planning and the prioritizing and the time management and things like that to get stuff done. So I in my opinion, whether people are professionally diagnosed or whether they are self-diagnosed, I think it is just like you said, it's life-changing because you become so much more aware of yourself and your habits and your patterns and your needs. But it also helps you understand either how you're similar to other people and how you can support them, or it helps you understand why there's discrepancies and disparities and challenges with other people because you just think so differently. So I'm definitely a fan of official diagnoses, but also even if people just think, if one time a kid was asking me, what is autism? So I was explaining it to him. I think he was 8 maybe. And his eyes got huge and he looked at his mom and he said, I think I have that. Well, then there you go. I don't care whether anybody has made it official or not. If you feel like you relate to that, there you go. Let's figure out what are some strategies, what are some resources, what are the things that, that you're struggling with. And also let's talk about how amazing that makes you because you have an autistic brain or an ADHD brain. So yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of formal diagnoses, but also self-diagnoses because of the self-acceptance that comes as part of that. And then also our ability to be part of communities with other people that we relate to, whether it's family, whether it's I'm in online communities, for women with ADHD. So yeah.
I totally agree. I think honestly, the main purpose of official diagnoses is for kids to be able to get the services that they need.
Yeah.
Other than that, just being able to understand where you fit and why you are who you are is just a big benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. That sense of belonging, right? I mean, as human beings, our brains are wired to crave that sense of belonging. It's that tribal instinct that we have, right? We all need to belong. And when our kids get to the point where they say they don't care or that it's not important to them, that's not true. We are wired to need to belong to a tribe and a community. So when kids say they don't care, it's because they've tried for so long to feel like they belong and it hasn't worked and they're just exasperated, right? They just don't know what else to do. So right. I think now I am such an introvert. So there definitely is that part of that where I prefer time by myself most of the time, but that's not the same thing as not wanting to be part of a tribe or community. They're not the same thing. So yeah, that's really cool. That's a great just story and journey about your family going from no diagnoses to now having all six of you guys in the neurodivergent tribe.
Absolutely.
And I think, I would say that that's part of the reason that you and I connect so well is that we understand that part of each other as well, but also that we tend to think a little more in sync because we think differently, right? So I think you and I connect just because our brains are a little bit similar as well.
Yeah,
So
I've actually heard, and I don't know if it's like scientifically proven, but I've heard that neurodivergent people tend to seek each other out. It's just who we naturally connect with. And a friend of mine, considerably younger than she's my adopted daughter, we were talking the one day and she was telling me that she has ADHD. And this was before I got my diagnosis. And I said, I've been thinking that I probably have it. And she said, well, duh. So yeah, I think that generally, if you hang out with a lot of neurodiverse people, you might want to take care.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting. Yesterday, actually, we have a student who's only been here a few weeks and she's elementary. And her mom was telling me that every week they have a conversation and her daughter says that she gets along. I don't remember exactly what words she used, but either that she gets along so much better with the kids here than she does at school, or that she enjoys them so much better. So something along those lines of basically her comfort level here with the other kids is much higher than it is in school. And so, my response was, on the one hand, I'm really sad to hear that about school, right? I'm really sad to hear that she doesn't feel that connected at school. And on the other hand, I'm really glad to hear that that's how she feels about coming to Starfish, because that's the point, right? The point is that we're all neurodivergent here. And so everybody belongs because we're all in the same boat. And it's so cool how open the kids are with their brains and their diagnoses here. They very openly talk about being autistic or having ADHD or being dyslexic or whatever it may be. They openly talk about it here. And I think for most of the kids here, this is the first and the only place where that happens, where they get to talk about it. And it's in a lot of our lessons. I will talk about how there are things that are hard for us specifically because we are autistic or have ADHD. Even this week that we're filming this, our lesson is about asking for help. And with our older kids, we talk about how sometimes it's helpful to tell people when you're asking for help. We've talked about interacting with the police, right? It can be really helpful to tell people that you're autistic or that you have a communication disorder, or that you have trouble regulating your emotions, because in a time like that, you could be very dysregulated, right? And so it's helpful for people to know things like that if we choose to disclose them. But I think there's just so much power in knowing how your brain works and being around other people who both understand that and share that as well.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me how you came across Starfish Social Club. What were you looking for? What was your purpose? And then we can just kind of go from there to where we are now. But what was on your mind when you started this journey? Where were you at mentally?
Sure. Well, so I'll back up a little bit that I was a stay-at-home mom for all the years of raising my kids until the last 7 years or so. And then I went to school. I don't say back to school because I hadn't had college before. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something in the, as I call it, touchy-feely field. And over time, I narrowed it down and narrowed it down and narrowed it down and got to coaching parents of autistic and spectrum kids, because I love life coaching and I'm a trained life coach. And I got my autism certification through IVCCES. So I was all prepared to do that. And I graduated in July. And on a personal level, we've been having a lot of struggles with my middle child. He, on top of everything else, has a ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. And when he was diagnosed with that back when he was 7, I didn't believe it. But in the last few years, it has really come to the forefront, and he's been struggling a lot at home and at school. And so we've been dealing with that on a major basis at home. And when he gets in that place where he's just fighting the world, after he gets through his meltdown, he breaks into tears and starts crying. And his go-to is always, I just need more social interaction. And as a mom, that's just heartbreaking to hear your child just sobbing and just needing that and not knowing how to help him get it, because I can only expect so much from his siblings. Kids don't want to spend all their time with their siblings. I don't care how much you love them, you need your own time. And he has people that he gets along with at school, but he doesn't have any friends,
Right.
to actually reach out to at any other time. So I started thinking about how I might be able to help him get that social interaction. And the thought came to me, I wish there was a place that he could go where he could just hang out with kids like him. And at the time, I didn't know that I would be able to teach any social skills or anything, but I thought at least in conjunction with my coaching, I could open up a place where kids can hang out. And so I was looking online for ideas of how to start something like that, because I had no clue. And I came across Starfish, and I was just delighted to find you, and everything that you do is so different from any of the social skills stuff that we've experienced before. Caleb has been with a social skills therapist since he was probably 7, and in social skills groups. And even in his social skills groups, he's the odd one out that can't get along with the other kids. And the big issue is that he doesn't care. He doesn't care about all these things that our wonderful, wonderful therapist has been trying to teach him, because he doesn't think it's important to him. And what you do is so much like life coaching that I really connected with it, because you focus on helping the kids decide what they want their reputation to be. And then they've set that goal. And so everything else you're teaching them is helping them to achieve the goal that they have. And so it's important to them. And so I was delighted to find you. And my first thought, the idea of starting something went out of my head. I just wanted to get Caleb in with you. And of course, you're in Texas. And I found your Starfish rating scale training, and I took that and found out that Caleb is a level 2. And on there, you said that those kids need to be in person. And I knew that you did online things, and I had considered getting into your online group with him. But that was when I decided, okay, he needs to be in person. How can I do this here? And that's when I reached out to you. It was Thanksgiving week, I remember. And I remember too that I sent an email off to you and got the email right back of, hey, we're out of town until the end of the week, or, we're not here. And I thought, well, I'm not going to hear anything. And then I heard back from you in like an hour. I was so excited. And so, yeah, that's how I found you. And that's what brought me to this point.
That's so cool. And, I think it's so awesome that your son has such a level of self-awareness that he's able to say that he needs more interaction with other kids like him. That's such a high level of self-awareness, because I can see where kids might feel that but not recognize it for what it is and not be able to verbalize it, right? So I think that's amazing. I also think that shows his level of maturity, that he's asking for help, right? He's recognizing that he's struggling and he's asking for help. So everything about him just sounds so amazing. And when we have kids that have a level of self-awareness, we're going, right? The possibilities are really endless once kids have that level of self-awareness, because they are very receptive to learning what they could be doing differently, right? So there's no good or bad or right or wrong, but it's just different, right?
Right.
So that's really awesome. And yeah, you mentioned the free training that's on our website where you can kind of see where your child falls on the scale. Our kids who are at level 2, which is where you're identifying him to be, definitely, if kiddos are more defiant, more resistant, they're most likely a level 2. So it sounds like he's kind of making his way up a little bit with that self-awareness. But because if there's that defiance, that resistance, and we are on Zoom, oh, it's so easy for them to just log off. When things get difficult, when they get pushed a little bit, they just turn their camera off, or they just log off, or they just don't come back next week, right? So in person, those things aren't an option, and we can really get in and work on some of the things that are, getting in their way. But when they're on Zoom, that's really difficult for our kiddos who are more resistant, because they have an out, right? They have a way to not participate. So it doesn't mean that level 2 kiddos wouldn't be successful on Zoom or can't attend via Zoom, but definitely if an in-person option is available, absolutely, that's the recommendation, because that's where they're going to be able to make the most progress, because there's not an out. The other
Right.
part of it too is, for level 2 kiddos, parents continuing to bring them because our level 2 kiddos can cause quite a disruption when it's something. I used to be one, so I'm speaking also about myself as mini Steph. I used to have a meltdown every time I had to put shoes on, and every time I had to go somewhere I didn't want to go. And we had to get a car that had the child safety windows and child safety locks because I was running down the street. So yeah, Zoom is definitely an option for everybody who's, Zoom capable, but for those kiddos who are a little more resistant, in person is definitely the way to go. I agree with that. And our level 2 kiddos also tend to be really engaging with other kids. They tend to really enjoy being around other kids once they've found their people, right? And so again, that in-person option helps to provide that as well. So that's
Yeah.
really cool. And I remember it's funny because last summer I had introduced the concept of teaching people how to start their own program. And then I just never really did it. ADHD brain, right? Like I made this whole thing and then I just never really did anything with it. And so when you emailed me in November and you said, would you consider teaching me how to do what you do? And I was like, I already made that thing. I already know exactly how to help you do that. So that's what was so cool about it, is you were asking me to do something that I had actually already thought about and created. So it helped us be able to just fall right in line with each other.
Yeah, I feel like it was meant to be.
Yes, absolutely. And so our plan, the plan that Lisa and I have is that her program is kicking off in the summer, because in my opinion and my experience, summertime for people who want to start their own club like this, summertime is the ideal time to start. Number one, parents are looking for resources for their kids. So you already have parents Googling, asking, looking for referrals, in Facebook groups. You automatically have parents at this time of year searching. Number two, you have more access to kids in the summer, right? I mean, so in the school year, obviously we don't run daytime programs, but in the summer in my program, we do both. We do evening and summer camp because we have more access to kids in the summer. You also have a greater amount of focused time to start making some growth with kids, right? So in the summer, you can run however many days of camp you want to, and it helps you have more focused, concentrated time so that even if kids only come in the summer, when they go back to school in the fall, they're in a different place. That they're further along the line socially than they would have been if they didn't come. So there's lots of different reasons why summer is really the ideal time to get started. And that makes our timeline perfect because now, you're in a position to start marketing your program for summer. So basically what Lisa and I have been doing for the last 6 weeks or so is I've structured a 12-week program where each week we talk about just a different aspect of getting a program like this up and running. And it's all based on everything I didn't know when I started this 7 years ago. One of my favorite things about my ADHD brain is I'm incredibly impulsive. And I actually really like that about myself because it means I just go and I don't second guess things and I don't talk myself out of things. I just go. So I started Starfish Social Club completely on a whim. And I just went, and I've been doing it for 7 years, just going. But definitely I had no idea what I was doing. I have no business background. I have no education in anything related to marketing or business or anything like that. So the point of my coaching program now is to take everything I've learned and help people grow much faster and much easier than Starfish Social Club. So that's what we've been going through. I think we're on week 6 now out of the 12 weeks. But every week I do videos, and then Lisa and I hop on Zoom and just a Q&A, anything that we want to talk about just to help her move forward. And Lisa, if you want to share the first thing that you told me today.
Oh, yes. First business phone call today. It was very exciting. For encouragement, I started getting my name listed out there as a resource. We have in our area, we have Milestones, which is a group association for autism support. They have a conference every year. And on their website, they have a resource listing. And so I got myself just last week listed as a resource with them. And today I got a phone call of a mom whose child was just diagnosed. She got my number from them. And so got my first interested customer.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And I think it's even when I started this program, I would hear so much how everybody's looking for social skills. I'm in some resource directories in my city here, and that everybody's looking for social skills. And part of the point that you had made earlier is that our program is so different, right? We are not ABA. We're not speech therapy. We're not occupational therapy. We're not, right? We're not boxed curriculum. There's just so many things that we're not, because I created it based on all the things I've been in this field for, 20 years almost. So all the things I've learned that our kids don't know or just don't understand. And then I would create the lessons and I would teach them, and I would see what kind of feedback I got from the kids. And then I would change them and grow them over time. And so it's a combination of my knowledge and experience and feedback from actual real live kids. And so, yeah, our methodology is different. Our curriculum is different. Our mindset around it is different. Um, yeah. So I'm really excited to be able to support you in starting your own. And we are not a franchise. This is Lisa's business 100%. She has her own name. It's her own, and it has nothing to do with me. I'm just a coach helping her get it up and going. And then she's a licensee in the curriculum that I created. But it is not a Starfish Social Club. It is a Spectrum Social Club, which is Lisa's business. So it is her own thing. I am basically just providing guidance and suggestions, and she can take them or leave them. So yeah, that's so exciting that you've had your first call with a prospective student. It's really cool to know that what we put our time and effort into, people are interested and they're looking for it. So that's really cool. And it's February. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's not even like it's April or May, it's February. Right. So yeah, definitely time to, to get some things in place and up and running.
I'm excited to start with summer camp because last year I wanted to get my son in a camp and there was nothing for him in this area. There were overnight camps, but he did not want to go overnight. He didn't want to sleep away from home. He's never slept without us. And he has a lot of issues around bedtime anyway. And there were no day camps here that were at his level. Mm-hmm. Special needs day camps, but it would have been not intellectually stimulating for him. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be able to offer what I didn't have, what was not available to us last summer will now be out there. And so hopefully there are lots of other families out there looking for it too. I'm really excited.
Yeah. And, you and I had talked about this a couple of weeks ago that most of our students are those in between students. They don't need therapeutic summer camp, right? And like you said, it's, those are usually designed for kids who are less capable socially or communication wise or whatever. So our kids don't necessarily need a therapeutic summer camp, but they don't always do so well at a typical summer camp because they don't have the support, or the staff don't really understand, if they're feeling overwhelmed or if they're struggling to communicate or if they're not making friends. So that's a great point, is our kids are really those in-between kids. And so I don't see my program as therapeutic, but it's definitely educational. We are not a day hab. We are not a daycare. We are not a place to just send your kid to, we're not a hangout, right? We are an educational program. So your child will learn some things. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Okay. I would love to hear, knowing that this is all new, but I would love to hear, when you think about the future of Spectrum Social Club, of your business, what are some things that you see in the future for your business?
I'm so excited, and I don't know what, how our brains are. Like, I probably need to rein it in a little, but part of my program will be very much like yours, with the day camp, summer camp, and also the evenings. I'm calling them summer fun nights. And the school, the school year long program with the hour-long lessons and the hour-long game times. But I also intend to have a monthly social gathering for the kids that will be more of a free for all kind of social thing. It's still an opportunity for them to use what they've learned. And the idea is that it won't be just, for one group here or there, but all of our groups together will be invited to this one gathering. I also want to stick to my roots of parent support, because being a parent I know how important that is. And I know when my kids got their diagnoses, I had no idea. I had no idea what to do for them. I had no idea what was available to them. I'm still learning things of what's available and out there for my kids. So I want to be a resource to help parents with that. And, I have a lot of background in marriage and family and child development and stuff. So I have the background to be able to help with that and parenting skills. So I intend to also offer parent coaching and parent, I don't know if you want to call them educational seminars or group coaching on various topics. And then as part of our children's group, any parents whose children are enrolled in our program will also be part of a parent group. I plan on having an online forum where they can connect, and also a once a month meeting for the parents to just get together and feel like they're not alone. Because I know there are times when I just feel like there is nobody else in the world who knows what it's like to be me. And it's not true. There are so many of us out there. We just have to find one another. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's the plan.
I love that. And again, it goes back to what you bring that I don't have is you have that personal connection from being a parent and being in that role that I don't have. I come from the educational perspective, right? But you have such a personal connection, and that'll be so helpful to all the parents in your program that you guys can connect on a personal level like that. So I'm excited for
It'll
that
be a great
too.
resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share or talk about?
About just my website. It's
Yeah, please.
.org,
Say it one more time, please.
spectrumsocial.org.
spectrumsocial.org. And Lisa is in Ohio. So if we have any listeners in that part of the country, please look her up, spectrumsocial.org. If you're on the Starfish email list or Facebook page, we've also posted about her previously. So I know on our Facebook page, we have a link to her. Actually, I don't know if we have your website. So I'll put that out there as well to make sure that people can get to you. Even just to support you, even if they're here in San Antonio with me, just to get some support for you as you're growing. And we will definitely see and hear more from Lisa in the future as her program gets ready for its debut. So thank you, Lisa, for spending time with me. I'm really excited for us to move forward together and to have more opportunities like what we are creating all over. So
Thank you so
looking
much for
forward
having me.
to the bright future.
Sorry to keep talking over you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always me. It's always that I just keep rambling.